Hey, house guests. Welcome to today's Big Brother 27 updates and spoilers. I hope you're all having a wonderful Monday and enjoyed your Sunday yesterday. Let me tell you, trying to catch up on these feeds from Saturday night on today, my brain is fried because these people keep finding more and more ways to do dumb things. So let's get into it. Our house guests of the day. We have Adrian and Peyton. Thank you so much. We have Caleb and Steven. Thank you so much. And we have Max Purdue. Thank you all so much for supporting us. We appreciate you so much, and we could not do this without you. So thank you again. And if you guys want to be house guests of the day, just send us an email to madrosed@gmail.com, and we will get you on the list. Just make sure you write house guest of the day in the subject line, and we'll add you on there. All right. We really do have a lot to discuss, so let's get it popping. When we left off the other day, the house guests were playing in the veto competition. So we had, I feel like I put like a cut on my tongue, and it's like just to talk. But the players, we had Ava, the HOH. We had the nominees, Keanu, Vince, and Zach. And then we had two extra players, Catherine and Will. So going into this competition, Ava was pretty much set on Morgan being the replacement nominee if necessary. Mickey was trying to dissuade her from this, telling Ava Morgan is a number for us, aka Morgan is a potential jury vote for me when I get to the end, because that's all Mickey seems to think about these days. But Ava was staying strong. She says, Morgan would target me. I know she's not happy that I put her guys up on the block. I know if she had the chance, she would take one of them down. So she is wanting to put Morgan up as the replacement. So they played the POV competition, and it was prizes and punishments. Yay! Always a good time, right? So let's go through the list of prizes and punishments. Catherine was the big winner. She won the power of veto. Whoa, interesting. Will won a trip to London. I'm jealous. Ava won $5,000. And then we have 3 punishments. So all 3 of the nominees, each one of them has a punishment this week. Vinny is wearing a costume. So he kind of got off easy where it's like, well, maybe not. But he is wearing a costume for the week. He's playing a hard-boiled egg detective. Keanu has both a costume and a task tied to the costume. So he is dressed up as a butler, like butt as in booty. He has to, we'll get into that more, but he has to prepare pigs in a blanket and serve them on a tray that sits atop his giant ass. And then Zach had some sort of like an overnight endurance task. You know how there's always one that like you have to complete something within a certain amount of time? Well, for his, he had to pick someone to join him. And I'm not sure if he chose Rachel or if she volunteered, but Rachel was doing the task with him. So we'll get more into all of these punishments in a bit. But first, after the competition, Ava and Will were chatting in the HOH room. And Ava says, I don't care which of these nominees goes home. She says, I don't give a rat's ass what Catherine does with the power of veto. Because Ava herself was considering vetoing her own nominations. If she had won the veto, she would have used it on Zach, and she would have put up Morgan in his place because Morgan is really getting on her nerves. Also, it would have been a good opportunity for her to try and gain trust back with Zach. But now she's wondering, has that ship already sailed anyway? Would I just be wasting my time with him? So she's good with whatever at this point. She's, feeling pretty good about her nominations. She thinks she made the right move, and I would agree. But Ava and Will are wondering why Catherine took the veto instead of one of the prizes. Like, did she really need this veto? Was she scared that she would potentially go up as the replacement? Because apparently it came down to, well, she won. Like, she was actually the last one standing in the competition. And Vince was second place, and he had the veto at the time. So she had her choice of any of the prizes or punishments, and she decided to take the veto from Vince, who is on the block, and then he got a punishment. Girl, going for the gold. I mean, I can't blame her. Why not? So, Ava wants to talk to Catherine and, see what's going on there, make sure they're all good. So, excuse me, Will says if Zach is still up for the vote at the end of the week, he feels like he can't vote against him. Because apparently Zach took a punishment so that Will could have the trip to London. Will might have been like the first one out, and he still ended up with his trip to London. How nice for him. But then we have Zach chatting with Morgan and then also Lauren in the storage room. And Morgan tells Zach, we're effed. And Zach says, no, we're going to be good because Will just looked me in the eyes and he said that what I just did for him, like giving him the trip, goes beyond this game. He said he respects me more than anyone else in this house. So he said, Will told me that he's going to go talk to Catherine and he's going to get her to use the veto on me. And then he's going to ask Ava to put himself up on the block in my place. I'm sorry. What? He thinks that because he gave Will this trip instead of taking it away and giving him a punishment, that Will is going to get Zach off the block and get himself up in his place and risk his game? Do you not remember how upset Will was when he was on the block before? So I'm not doubting that Will said this to Zach because maybe he did, but he was probably going to be like, yeah, I'll just say that they don't want to do it. There's no effing way that Will would actually do that. He would not go up on the block like that. That's crazy. So anyway, Rachel and Mickey are chatting in the wine room and they're talking about how they want Keanu to stay this week over Vinny or Zach because they feel like Keanu is better for their games. Also, in this conversation, Mickey is asking Rachel, do you want to be in jury? And Rachel's like, do I want to sit in the jury house? No. I almost feel like there is just like a major misunderstanding this season because again, it's people that are not super familiar with the game. And when they're talking about, say, like Rachel making it to jury, instead of saying making it to jury, like getting to that point in the game, they're like, oh, we want Rachel in jury, which Rachel is taking as they want me eliminated sitting in the jury house, which I mean, in some instances, we have heard them say that, like they want her out voting, a voting member of the jury. But it also feels like sometimes they're trying to say, like, we want you to get to the jury phase of the game. But like the way that they're phrasing it, it just sounds like they're telling her, we want you to lose and vote for us to win. So Rachel is taking this as you want me to just sit there in that jury house and vote for you to win. And she's like, no, I don't want to do that. Do I want to keep competing to get to those final two chairs? Obviously, yes. So Rachel says, I think people are very confused thinking that I want to go sit in a jury house for weeks. So Mickey's like, oh, well, Morgan was the first person to tell me that you would be great to have in the jury, because Rachel could get people to think about the votes in a certain way and aka like get everybody to vote for like Morgan or Mickey to win this whole thing. So Mickey was like, if I was at the end and you were out, I would want you in the jury to vote for me. Some of the things that Mickey says to people's faces, I just can't believe it. But Rachel's like, I got kids at home. I got a husband at home. And if I make it to the point that jury starts, I will do everything that I can to make it to the end. She says, I am not leaving this house. I will die. I will die before I leave this house. She says, I'm never seeing that jury house. I'm either getting voted out before or I'm making it all the way to the end. So Rachel says, by the way, I am the best person for anyone to bring to the final two. Because people are not going to want to vote for her to win against somebody who hasn't had that chance before. So she says there is no reason that I should ever be seeing the jury house. So keep that in mind for later because it's going to come up again. Will and Ava have another chat in the HOH room. And Ava's again saying, you know, I kind of do want to save Zach this week, but I'm not sure that I even want to broach that subject with Catherine because she has seen Catherine whispering with Vinny before. She does not want to rock the boat with Catherine if she knows that Catherine is potentially close to Vinny. So she says if nominations do stay the same, Vinny is her number one target. That's who she would like to see leave the most. But if Catherine uses the veto, Ava's still planning on putting Morgan up. And then at that point, the nominees can fight it out. She does not want Keanu to go. So it would really be it would be Vince versus Morgan or Zach versus Morgan. But she does feel like they would have the votes to keep Keanu safe. She would need 5 votes to get the tie, and then she could break it how she wants. So she also told Keanu to his face, like, I don't want you to leave this week. I'm not going to be campaigning for you to go, so you don't have to worry about that. Keanu's gotten in a lot of people's good graces the last week or so. So he's made a lot of improvements to his game. So a little later, Morgan is talking to Will. And Morgan is crying. She's been doing a lot of crying since her boys went up on the block. So she's talking about how touching it was to see Zach give the trip to Will during the veto competition. And Will's like, yeah, he's a good kid. It was an amazing gesture. But Morgan is also crying because she's upset that she'll potentially have to choose between Zach and Vince this week. Man, she would be freaking shocked if Zach were to use his $10,000 bribe power and then she went up in his place. That would be nuts. But she says that Zach is better for her game. Is he? And she says it's going to be so hard for her to tell Vince that she's going to keep Zach because she feels like she's been a safe space for Vince. You know, at the end of each night, they would talk and he could say whatever to her, safe space, blah, blah, blah. So she would feel really bad then going ahead and being like, I'm keeping Zach over you. But she was feeling in that moment that Zach would be better for her game. We'll see if she still feels that way in a bit. But this house was overcome with emotion on Saturday night. Vinny was talking to Lauren in the have not room, and Vinny is complaining about the state of the game right now. He says, Rachel has already won before. She's played multiple times. Ava sleeps 16 hours a day. Ashley doesn't even know what the F is going on. And he says, people like you and me, we're disposable to that group. Isn't it great? But he says, that makes me want to run through a wall. I want to jump into oncoming traffic if I go home on Thursday. Dude, come on. It's a bit much. But Lauren's like, we need to talk to Catherine. We need to see if there's any chance that she'll use the veto on you. And Vince says it's a scary prospect, right? Talking to Catherine about this. But we have to gamble because this is Big Brother. Oh my God. Okay, so Keanu has a new insane plan. New Keanu plan dropped. So he was sharing it with Morgan in the wine room. And this was a lot. Keanu is telling Morgan, look, I know we both want Vinny to stay this week. If Catherine does not use the veto on Vinny, his best chance to stay would be to win the blockbuster competition. So Keanu says he wants to throw the blockbuster to Vinny. I mean, the other day he was already considering throwing the veto to Vinny. I guess that didn't happen, right? Neither of them won. But now he's saying he would consider throwing the blockbuster competition to Vinny. Okay, so Morgan tells Keanu, let's back that up a little bit because I don't know that you would have the votes to stay over Zach. And honestly, I'm surprised that Morgan even brought this up to Keanu. I thought she'd be like, oh my God, a chance for both of my boys to stay, and Keanu would go. I thought for sure she would just be like, yeah, sounds great. But Morgan is telling him, I don't think you would have the votes against Zach. And Keanu's like, well, I would need your vote for sure. I know you like Zach, but I'm better for your game than him. And Morgan is like, I can't even think about this right now because if the veto is used, I feel like I'm going to go up on the block as a replacement. So, like, I might even be up there. I might not even be voting. So, Keanu's like, well, if the veto is used on any of the nominees, it's probably going to be me because after Catherine, I am Riley's number one in this house. So, he's assuming because Catherine and Riley are showmancing that he will come off the block if the veto is used because he's close to Riley. It's hard to say how close he actually is to Riley. I think he thinks he's close to Riley. And yeah, I don't know because Riley is always like, oh, I hate Keanu, blah, blah, blah. He's terrible, but I love him. And then to his face, Riley's like, oh, yeah, we're going to the end together. This is amazing, blah, blah, blah. Who knows, right? But anyway, Catherine is the one who won the veto, not Riley. So back to Keanu's ridiculous plan. He is pushing again that he's going to need Morgan's vote to make this happen. And this is, of course, if he's up against Zach. So he's expecting Morgan to vote Zach out over him. And Keanu says Zach would backstab anyone that he's aligned with, except for maybe Lauren, right? Because like he's into Lauren, everybody knows it. And Morgan's like, I have always wondered who Zach would choose if it was between me and Lauren, like who to keep in the game. And Keanu's like, yeah, I don't think that's even a question, to be honest. I don't think that that's the answer that Morgan was expecting, but she's like, I have to go. I have to go talk to Vinny. She got out of there quickly. So, yeah, Morgan and Vinny go chat. And Vinny is crying again. And Morgan says, I'm trying to figure out a way for you, me, and Zach to all make it through this week. So Vinny is like, well, Rachel will stop at nothing to make sure that I leave this week. And Morgan says, if you go, I'm going to find out who's responsible for this. And I'm going to send them home. So Vinny's like, it's Rachel. Rachel's responsible. I mean, he's been saying that for a while now, right? But he's like, I don't even know how I ended up on her bad side. We don't have all night to talk about why he's on Rachel's bad side, but basically the short answer is she sees how he's playing this game. She sees that he's snaking through, right? So that's why she's targeting him. It's not some personal thing. But Vinny says he's going to be so upset if he doesn't even make his jury. He feels like he deserves it more than some other people. He's ranting again about how Ava sleeps 16 hours a day. Ashley doesn't know what's going on. She's being carried through this game. Meanwhile, Ashley has some of the best reads in the house, but okay. He's saying Ava fell ass backwards into an HOH win, and he says it's effing bullshit. It's a real Tommy Wiseau moment. But Morgan is telling him, don't give up. Maybe Catherine uses the veto. Maybe you win Blockbuster. Like, we can still make this work. So then we have Mickey and Morgan chatting in the storage room. And they're talking about Rachel. They're feeling very annoyed with her lately. They do not think she's giving them info anymore. They say she only asks questions now. Maybe she's not giving you guys info because you took out Jimmy last week. Her really close ally, her friend, and Jimmy was also working with you. So, like, maybe she doesn't trust you anymore. I think that's a legit reason. But Morgan's like, I know we said we want Rachel in jury. And Mickey says we need her in jury. But she's weird. She's acting weird. So Morgan says, I don't know how long I can keep it in. You know, I'm going to like freak out at some point. So Morgan says, this week is a real shit show for me because my boys are up there and I want Vinny to stay over anyone. Oh, because before she was saying that Zach was better for her game and she was getting all teary-eyed just having to think about potentially telling Vinny that she's voting him out over Zach. But now she's saying she wants Vinny to stay over any of the other options. And she's like, if he stays, he'll put Rachel up on the block. And Mickey's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know if I want that. I need Rachel in jury. I don't know why she thinks Rachel's going to vote for her to win after some of the shit she's pulling. But Morgan brings up how she's wondering, is Zach going to pick Lauren over me if it comes down to that? it all comes back to that conversation with Keanu earlier, right? Because he was telling her, Zach would pick Lauren over you. But Mickey says Zach leaving really does make the most sense to her at this point. She wants Keanu around to win competitions to protect her. She wants Vince around because she feels like she has a better thing with him. Also, I guess she feels like he's a bigger target in front of them. But Morgan starts like fantasizing about Zach coming off the block and then Lauren going up in his place. And she's like, wouldn't that be great? We could just see how Zach would vote this week, just to test him, just to see, girl. And yeah, Morgan was also talking about how Vince and Zach are the only ones that ask her about herself. How many times do we have to hear this? But anyway, moving on. Vinny begins his egg detective punishment, the hard-boiled egg detective. So he has to wear this costume for a week. And if you haven't seen it yet, it is this huge, cumbersome egg with a hat with the top of the egg and then a hat on the hat. And he's wearing a tie, he's wearing a trench coat, and he also has to carry around a big magnifying glass. And he also has a stool that he can sit on. The stool goes underneath the egg because he can't just like sit down regularly. But when he's sitting down on the stool, the egg like goes up and it almost meets the bottom of the hat. It's wild. But the stool also has some wheels on it, so he can kind of like wheel around, I guess. It's wild. He also has a slimmer egg suit, a squishy one for sleeping in. That's a long week in that costume. But at least he doesn't have to do a task, right? A little while later, Keanu began his punishment. And again, he is the butler. And I believe his is also for a week, or at least until the end of the week. I think it ends before the eviction this week. So he was looking sharp in his fancy tuxedo outfit. But then when he turns around, he's all caked up with nowhere to go. They gave him a big fake booty with a serving tray on top. It was like the Kim Kardashian paper magazine cover where she's holding the champagne and then the champagne is going over her head and going into a glass that is sitting on top of her ass. So he's got the tray on the butt. And when prompted by Big Brother, he has to prepare pigs in a blanket. So he's got to like wrap the dough around the cocktail weenies and bake them. And then he has to serve them to specific guests. Big Brother says in the prompts who he's supposed to give them to. Sometimes it's like individual people. Sometimes it's the whole house. So yeah, he also has different costume variants for sleeping, swimming. All of them have like some sort of butt padding, but like the full-on one is ridiculous. He's been having some issues just with like the belt that attaches the butt. He says it's kind of like hurting his back a bit, but he's being a very good sport about this punishment. He's trying to play it up. He's having fun. Good for him. It's good to see him with this positive attitude about it. But Zach and Rachel also did their punishment on Saturday night. And again, this was one of those ones where it's like overnight, you have a certain amount of time to complete a task. But we didn't get to see it at all on the live feeds. I have no idea what it actually was. I heard something about them like potentially being tethered together. I heard something about a cage. I don't know if that's true or not, but we didn't get to see it. So I have no idea what they were doing, but they did complete it. I don't know. Yeah, so that was Saturday night. Sunday morning, Zach is showering. It's early Sunday morning. Zach is showering after completing the punishment. And Morgan comes over and she's talking about how hard it's going to be for her to have to choose between Zach and Vince, potentially, especially if Keanu wins the blockbuster. She's really going to have to choose between them. And she's like, I'm unwell over it. I don't feel good. I can't do this. I mean, she won't have to if Zach uses his power and then she's up on the block, right? That'd be wild. But Zach chats with Vince and what am I saying? Zach chats with Vince. Oh, and tells him, I mean, Rachel and Zach had a lot of alone time during this punishment. They had a lot of time to talk. And he's like, Rachel told me that you are her target. Straight up, you're her target. So she also told me that I would have the votes to stay this week. So Zach says, maybe we can work something out here. Maybe we can set up some sort of a truce between you and Rachel. And of course, Vince is like, oh, I love this. I don't know why she's after me. I don't get it. So good luck with that. We'll see. But Zach was also saying that he wants Will still to go up as the replacement nominee if they can get Catherine to use the veto on Vinny. He was saying Will because Will was like, oh, you gave me the trip. Like, I'd love to go up in your place. But Zach also brings up, like, 10 minutes after Will said that, he came back to him and was like, oh, I asked Ava about it, and she said that she didn't want to do it. Yeah, no shit. She's not putting up her own ally. Who do you think she is, Mickey? Lauren? No, she's not doing that. So another option that they were hoping would be a replacement nominee was Kelly. Ava's not going to do it. Kelly has like barely been on the live feeds the last few days. When I say she's laying low, she is laying low. She is really enjoying her time off from the block this week. So anyway, did I skip? Oh yeah, I think I skipped this part. From Saturday night, you may be wondering, how does Catherine feel about winning the power veto? What is she thinking about doing with it? She told Riley she doesn't want to use it. That's why I skipped it, because this is 2 lines. She's not looking to use it. So, all right, Sunday afternoon. This is where things get a little spicy. Morgan and Rachel kind of got into it in the storage room. And let's just set the scene here. Rachel is still pretty pissed that she's been hearing over and over again how people think that they're just going to drag her to the jury portion of the game and then vote her out pretty much immediately, just have her sit in that jury house and rot for weeks, and then do some work to try and get jury votes for certain people to win this whole thing. So she's got that already circulating in her mind, right? So the conversation started out fine. Morgan was like, oh, the more big shields that we take out, the worse it's going to be for us. The more people are going to be focused on us. So she's telling Rachel, she's trying to vouch for Vince and Zach. That's pretty greedy. But she is trying to tell Rachel that Vince and Zach both want to work with her. Okay. They wouldn't put you up. They all want you in jury. This was not what Rachel wanted to hear. They all want her in jury. That's not a compliment. So, again, this was probably a case of Morgan meaning they want you to get to the jury portion of the game, that checkpoint. But this is not the way that Rachel hears it. And this is not the way I would hear it either. It makes it sound like they want her in the jury house. So Rachel says, Morgan, you know that I'm not going to jury. I will be in this house until final 3. If you think I'm going to jury, I will never see that house. Not doing it. So Morgan's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I just meant jury as like a checkpoint in the game, making it to jury. And Rachel's like, okay, but I'm telling you, if that's everyone's plan, because that's what I've been hearing, which she has been hearing that legit, not just a misunderstanding, but like, we want to vote Rachel out so she will be on the jury. That has been going around. So she's like, I'm not doing it. I'm so tired of hearing it. I'm not going to be in that jury house. And Morgan's like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I meant the checkpoint. And she tells Rachel, I don't want you to go. And I'm trying to take you as far as I possibly can in this game. So Rachel tells Morgan, again, your whole group is crazy if you think that I'm just going to sit in that jury house. And Rachel's getting heated at this point. She's raising her voice a bit. She says, I will not be there. I will be sitting in that final 2 chair. So if you guys want to F with me, go ahead, but it's not going to end well. So Morgan's like, I don't know what the boys are planning. I don't know what their deal is, but I'm just talking about checkpoints. So Rachel is saying, you can underestimate me all you want. I have won this game. I've played this game twice. I've been on reality TV for 15 years. You newbies think that you can tell me what to do, or like, I haven't seen this before. She says, I've heard better. I've played with better. She really loves pulling that line out. But Morgan's like, I'm not telling you what to do, Rachel. Checkpoint. I just meant checkpoint. And she says, I'm also trying to get to jury. I don't know if I'm going to make it. Maybe not. But she says to Rachel, I want you here. So again, Rachel's just insisting I'm not going to jury. She says the fire hasn't even come out yet. She says I've got 2 kids and a husband at home. I have a lot to lose here. I'm tired of the disrespect. I'm tired of you not putting an effing crown on my name. Ooh, they really do underestimate her. It's interesting. I think it's because so many of them just like don't know the history of the show that well. Everything that they've seen of Rachel has just been like the outrageous clips of like her getting into fights, but like they haven't seen all the ass kicking stuff, you know? I don't think they've seen her like full seasons, so they don't get it. But she says, you can tell your friends that. And she tells Morgan, like, I do want to work with you. Maybe. They have a little game talk, and Morgan says, people are coming after us. You know, we need to be really careful. And Rachel's asking, who's coming after us? Why do you think this? And there was one point where Morgan was saying, like, oh, you know, I was so upset when I learned that Jimmy was coming after me. And Rachel's like, what are you even talking about? Jimmy was never coming after you. I was working with him closely, and he never mentioned coming after you. Yeah, he was not going after them. Morgan and Mickey. But Morgan's like, well, I'm just hearing that, you know, it would make sense if people were coming after us. She also says, I'm hearing that some people are afraid to break up the showmance. And she's like, I'm different about it. Girl, she did tell somebody else. I can't remember if it was Vince or Zach, but she was telling somebody else that if she wins HOH, she would want to put up Catherine, Riley, and then I forgot who the third nominee was, but she's definitely trying to go after that showmance. So Morgan says other people are afraid to do it, but she says, I'm just trying to figure out this game. I'm a newbie, like you said. And Rachel's like, okay, well, good luck. So not long after this conversation, Rachel is on the warpath. Rachel goes to Catherine, and Rachel says, I have some info for you. Morgan and I just got into a fight, and Morgan just told me that everyone wants to break up the showmance. I mean, that's not exactly what she said, but I mean, Morgan wants to go after the showmance. So Rachel tells Catherine, keep this in the back of your mind. There's nothing that we can do about it this week, but I'm just letting you know. So she's trying to lay the groundwork here because obviously Catherine is the veto holder. So maybe this information would make her want to use the veto, maybe get Morgan to go up in her place. So the wheels are turning here a little bit. Rachel tells Catherine, I am on your side. I'm on the showmance's side. So then on the flip side, we have Morgan retelling the blow up to Mickey. And she's like, oh, Rachel was just going off on me in the storage room. And she said she's going to the final 3. She's not going to the jury house. And Mickey says, oh no, Rachel will be going to jury. She says no one is going to take her to final 3. Oof. And it wasn't in this conversation, but it was a later conversation with Morgan and I want to say Vinny, where Mickey was like, you know, Rachel, she's coming in here 15 years after her last time, and everybody in here is like half her age. She should be happy if she gets to jury. Oh, girl. Also, like, Mickey is not half Rachel's age. She's like 5 years younger. So let's like cool it on that. But wow, Mickey really thinks she's going to be deciding who's all in jury and who's not. It's a lot. She's still power tripping. So meanwhile, Rachel goes to the HOH room to tell Ava about the argument with Morgan. And Rachel says, I just got into a huge fight with Morgan. And she says, Morgan wants to break up Riley and Catherine. And I told Catherine, oops. She says to Ava, sorry, like I'm going postal. I'm sick of Morgan. But Rachel and Ava are kind of on the same page at this point, thinking about Zach coming down with the veto and Morgan going up in his place. So Ava says she was already planning on talking to Catherine about potentially doing that. So Rachel's thinking about it a little more and she's like, is it the best move though for Zach to come down? Like it would make more sense for Keanu to come down, right? Because then you're guaranteed that somebody from that trio is going, because there is the risk that if Keanu is still up there, one of the trio could win the blockbuster, and then what if Keanu ends up leaving, right? So she's like, maybe we get Keanu to come down. But Ava is worried that if Keanu comes off the block, that's going to show all of their cards. I mean, Catherine would be the one using the veto, not you. But she also doesn't think that that Catherine is going to use the veto anyway. She feels like it's probably a long shot. Yeah. So they're really wanting to focus on making sure they can get the votes to take out Vinny this week if that veto is not used. So in other news, Catherine spills to Riley. She says, Rachel said that Morgan said everyone wants the showmance out. And Riley's like, what? I haven't heard that shit. No one's told me that. Why are they going to tell you? Why are people going to tell you that they want the showmance out? That would make no sense. But Riley says he's feeling effing irritated now. And he says if that snake, meaning Morgan, really said that, she'll be gone next week. So Catherine, she's over Morgan as well. She says she was fine with putting Morgan up even before this happened. So Morgan is making a lot of enemies right now. Riley says no one is splitting us up. Effing try me. You know, just because somebody else is sad in here not having a good time doesn't mean that I can't have a good time. All right. So a little later, Rachel and Morgan are chatting again. Oh boy. This time in the gym. And Morgan says, I know you're not one to F with. And I know that you're not going to settle for jury. She's trying to clean it up here a little bit, right? So Rachel says, I just find it disrespectful that people think that they're just going to use me to mediate the jury vote like Dr. Will or like Taylor, right? She says it's ridiculous. It's frustrating. So Morgan apologizes. She says she did not mean to be disrespectful by saying that. And then Morgan starts crying. She's talking about how exhausted she is, how hard this game is. I mean, she's had a hard week. Her boys are on the block. But she's like, I'm shocked at how things have changed. I'm shocked that Jimmy isn't going to make it to jury. He's out of here. I never would have thought that would be the case. And who's responsible for that? But she says, nobody wants to talk to me. People only want to talk to me on a personal level, not game. She says, Zach and Vince talk game with me, and that makes me feel like I'm actually doing something. I'm actually playing. And she says, I want to be more than just a number for people. And Rachel's like, hold on a second. She calls her out because she's like, you've said before that people only talk game to you and they don't talk personal. And now you're saying the reverse. So, like, which one is it? Thank you. I think she just likes to complain. If it's not about her, she's upset. But at the same time, Mickey was crying in the HOH room with Ava and Will. And Mickey was like, I don't know what Rachel's insensitivity to being put in jury is. But let's be honest, guys. Rachel has won this game before. She's been on it multiple times, and no one wants to take Rachel to top 3. She says, there are so many people in this house that are deserving of a top 3 spot over her. And it's just not fair. It's making me sad. Is Rachel just supposed to leave? She's supposed to give it to somebody else? Like, what do you want her to do? Oh my God. It's just ridiculous. I can't. So we're going to move on. A little later, Ava and Catherine are chatting about the veto. And Ava tells Catherine, look, you won this veto. It's your choice what you want to do with it. I'm not going to tell you what to do. So Catherine is leaning towards not using the veto because looking at these nominees, she says none of these guys care about my personal game, right? They never talk game with me. They're not concerned with what I'm doing in here. So she's not going to be concerned about saving any of them with the veto. Okay, I'm with it. She did feel bad about taking the veto away from Vinny during the competition, but she said, I'm not going to pass it up, right? I mean, she won the competition. She gets to choose what she's going to do. So she's also pissed that people just assumed that she wouldn't want to go for it because Riley protects her in this game, right? She's trying to fight for her identity in this game at this point. She doesn't want to just be Riley's showmance. She wants to be an active member of this game. So she was going for that veto. So Ava says all those guys are shook right now because they just assumed that one of them was going to win the veto. And look what happened. So yeah, she's not planning on using that veto. In other news, Big Brother gave the Houseguests some booze last night, one thimble each. So rest of the night, there was one interesting conversation for sure between Zach and Morgan. So they were sharing different information that they had been finding out throughout the day. And Zach is like, well, I found out today that someone spilled to Ashley that I'm targeting her. It was Jimmy. Remember before Jimmy left last week, like the night before, he told Ashley, like, you shouldn't trust Zach because he wants to make you a have not and he would put you on the block. Yeah, Ashley knows about that now. And she confronted Zach about it. And he was like, oh, yeah, I did say that like week one because you kept bringing up that I had $10,000 from the prize or whatever. He said it way after that. But he's asking Morgan about it. He's like, how did she find out? We know it was from Jimmy. But he also says, Rachel told me during our punishment that Mickey is targeting me. And that's now at least the second person that I've heard that from. Oop. And then Morgan shares some of the stuff she's been hearing. She says, someone told Rachel about me saying that she would be good on the jury and like helping people vote like the right way. And she's like, I only told you and Vinny about that. So how did she find out? She's been hearing that from everybody, but especially Mickey, who has been throwing Morgan under the bus with that. Also, Morgan says, somebody told me that if you had to choose between me and Lauren, you would pick Lauren. So Zach is just like, excuse me? I never said that. So he's asking, who told you that? And she's like, you know. And he's like, who told you that? And she's like, you know. And this goes on so many times back and forth. She is not giving him the answer. And he seems really, really annoyed that she won't just spit it out. So eventually she starts blaming it on Ashley. She's saying Ashley's the one who told her this. It was Keanu. It was Keanu. I'm pretty sure Ashley had said something similar to this to Morgan a while back. And also just like looking out for her on a friend level, like, because we know that Morgan was super into Zach or is super into Zach. And Ashley was like, dude is like in love with Lauren, so don't let him play you. And yeah. Morgan, after talking to Keanu earlier in the day, is realizing again, like, wow, maybe Zach wouldn't pick me. I don't know. But she's blaming it on Ashley. So also last night, Rachel gave Ava a big pep talk because Ava was really going through it. She was crying because it's been very overwhelming, especially since the veto competition. Everybody's all worked up in a tizzy about one of these guys potentially leaving, and it's just a lot. So Rachel was telling her, you're doing great. You did something that a lot of people wouldn't have the guts to do. Everybody is rooting for you back home. So she was really doing a good job of just being like a friend to Ava. Also last night, Riley and Catherine like made out a bit. I can't. Blech. All right, moving on. Today, they had the POV ceremony. And I was like, holy crap, this is going to be amazing because even though Catherine's not planning on using her veto, it looked like it was pretty safe to say Zach would probably use maybe his secret power, his 10K bribery power. So the feeds come back after the ceremony and we find out Catherine did not use the veto, which we knew she wasn't going to. So I believe that's the first time this season that the veto has not been used. Isn't that wild? Or did I just make that up? I feel like that is the first time though. And also, we find out that Zach did not use his $10,000 bribery power. Oh my God. Dude, what? You're on the block. You're not gonna use your power. You're on the block. So I guess he feels safe next to Keanu and Vince. I guess he wants to take his chances playing the blockbuster competition. I guess he feels like even if he doesn't win it, he will be safe. He will have the votes. I don't know that that's true. I don't know that that's true. So I think there is a chance that Zach could be leaving this week, depending on what happens with the blockbuster competition. It's very up in the air right now with the votes. I do feel like at this time, Keanu is the most safe of the three nominees, Keanu, Zach, and Vince. But anything could happen. Zach may have just made a huge mistake. Maybe, I mean, he'll get the $10,000, but that might be like all he's leaving with. So, interesting choice to not use the power to save himself. Very interesting. So, we've got 3 days left until the eviction. We'll see how it all plays out. And I want to thank you all so much for being here. I know Mondays are long ones, so I really appreciate you guys sticking around for the stream. But I want to give a special thanks to all of our super chatters today. So we have Austin Thomas. Thank you so much for the super chat. And he wants to know, do you guys think Rachel has a chance to win? I do think that she has a chance. It's definitely an uphill battle because I feel like until she wins some competitions and really like makes some moves, they're just not going to respect her, which is like crazy to say. But I think as a returning house guest, she's going to need to pull some flashy moves to get these people's attention. Yeah, they don't know her gaming style, right? And she's also playing a much different game than she has in the past. But I think if she can get some competitions under her belt, like some competition wins and make some moves, it's possible. But yeah, I don't know. She's going to have to really like win some people over because as of right now, I don't see a lot of people voting for her to win, but I do think it's possible. I'd love to see Rachel win. I never thought I'd be saying that going into the season, but I've just loved watching how she's grown in this game and how she's changed over the last 15 years since she was last on. But I've been very impressed with her, so I'm for it. Connor Benson, thank you so much. Connor says, the fact that the feeds have stressed me out more than my day job baffles me. They have been very stressful. Surely someone has to target Mickey very soon, right? Mickey and Morgan need to be humbled. And why, Zach, why you had safety? Yeah, I was really hoping that Morgan was going to be going up on the block today because I thought that Zach was for sure going to use his power. I mean, how do you not? This is the season of stupid moves, so that's how. But yeah, I thought she'd be going up today. It would be nice to see both Mickey and Morgan go up soon because Mickey's head, it really is like that episode of What We Do in the Shadows when Colin Robinson, the energy vampire, is just feeding so much and his head is like humongous from all of the feeding on the energy. That's Mickey. So her head, I don't know if she's going to walk through the door frames after a while because her head is just getting huge. But yeah, let's see them get humbled. That would be great. So thank you to Connor Benson. Sean Davis, thank you so much. And Sean says, Keanu now reminds me of Kung Fu Panda. He's an underdog right now, right? Which is weird to say. But Morgan, Riley, Mickey, and Vince need to go. Vince is manipulator and Zach is dumb, hoping for a 7-person jury. I also would love to see a 7-person jury. I would love to see some of these people not make it. And I agree with your list of people that you want to go. We're on the same page. So thank you again to everybody so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow for another live stream. So I hope you'll join for that and have a great Monday night. And until next time, much love. Bye, everybody.